Are you interested in deepening your spiritual awareness and discovering your true nature as divine? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Align with the Divine. With me, your host, Patricia DiOrio, spiritual mentor, sacred storyteller, and professional intuitive. Join me and my amazing guests each week for a deep dive into the exciting world of spirituality. Align with the Divine will inspire you to embrace your innate power to create your reality. It will motivate you to move past your limited thinking, release your subconscious programming, and show you how to live in the present moment with clarity and focus. Get involved with the show. Send your email to patricia@patriciadiorio.com. This is Align with the Divine. Hello, everyone. Patricia here. Welcome to Align with the Divine podcast. So get set for another delicious conversation about spirituality, taking a deep dive into understanding that we are spiritual beings in physical bodies, and that we are divine beings in our human experience. We're coming now into alignment with that aspect of ourselves that is divine. So my guest today is a new friend and colleague and collaborator. Her name is Reverend Diane Lund. I met Reverend Diane when we were both speaking at a summit a few months ago, and I was talking about this channeled body of work that I work with called I Am the Word, channeled by Paul Selig. And I was surprised when I heard Diane speak that she was talking about a channeled body of work that she was doing called A Course in Miracles, and that we were both leading study groups. Well, that was an amazing coincidence. Of course, I don't believe in coincidences. Let's say it was just a wonderful synchronicity. Anyway, shortly after I was hearing her speak, I had this download of information, and this is what I heard. You and Diane are going to be working together, going to be collaborating together, and you're going to be doing a podcast called Miracles and the Word. And guess what? We are doing that. So we're going to share about that today as well. Diane has a beautiful vitae that I want to share with you here in a moment about her life as a spiritual teacher. And before I share it, though, I want to ask you, where are you in your spiritual life? You know, we're all teachers and students. So you're a teacher and student in your own life around spirituality. But when you ask yourself that question, how committed am I to my spiritual development? What answer do you get? Well, I have a way where you can get some answers. I have developed a spiritual assessment, or a quiz, if you will, and it's on the homepage of my website, alignwiththedivine.net. And I invite you to go take the quiz and see where you land around. It's a multiple choice, and it's 12 questions. And I would love to know your score. If you're interested in having a conversation with me about it, just click on the link and we'll set up some time where I can give you a discovery session to discover exactly where you are and where you want to go from there. And also, I give you a little mini tarot reading with this wonderful deck of cards I work with called the Voyager Tarot. So go ahead and check it out on my website. And so now about this wonderful lady, Reverend Diane Lund. She has two great loves in her life. And that is, one is being a creative, artistic director and producer, and the other is studying spirituality. And she has her own business called Miracles and Wonder, which she has done for 31 years. And she has had many kudos and awards in the many creative ventures that she put forth for corporations, award-winning creative corporate ventures. And as I mentioned, she's been leading A Course in Miracles study groups for decades. And it wasn't until 2018 that she became a reverend specializing in A Course in Miracles through the Canadian International Metaphysical Ministry, CIMM. Didn't know that existed before. And she has 3 amazing best-selling books this year that she's launched, 3 amazing books this year. And she's going to share about her books. They're really about how to use A Course in Miracles to turn your life upside down, inside out and upside down. And she has recently launched a new membership website that combines her love of both creativity and spirituality. And that is miraclesandwonders.ca. miraclesandwonders.ca. So sit back, relax, or maybe you're walking the dog or cooking or doing something where you're listening, whichever, listening or watching. I hope that you enjoy this conversation. We will have a wonderful time. I just know it. See you later. See you in a minute. Bye-bye. Diane, I'm so delighted to welcome you to my podcast, Align with the Divine. When I first saw you several months ago, we were both speaking on a summit, and I was attracted to you immediately. And when I discovered that you were actually not channeling, but you were actually working with a channeled body of work, Course in Miracles, which I had worked with for many years, I thought, oh, I'm not the only person on this summit that's talking about channel material, because I talk about the word work, I Am the Word and all the subsequent books. So I feel like we had a divine connection right off the bat. And that was a few months ago. And ever since then, we've been rocking and rolling. And we're going to talk about our new TV show that's going to be coming out very, very soon. But first, I want to say, again, thank you for being here. I really appreciate your coming on. And I know that you're a minister and you have a very long background of doing the spiritual work and helping people. Why don't you give us a little bit about your background, about how you got started with being a spiritual coach and teacher?
It is a long background. And thank you, Patricia, for welcoming me onto your podcast today. I'm delighted to be here and speak with you, as I always am. My beginnings with A Course in Miracles goes back to the early 1980s, when I was given the text by a girlfriend who was in AA, actually. And, that's a spiritual program, AA. And she said, you might like this book because I know you love spiritual stuff. And she gave it to me. And I was like, oh, yeah, great. And I opened it up and I looked at it and I went, oh, no. It was too big. It had onion thin pieces of paper. It had all this Christian text. And I was like, oh no, I went to a Lutheran Christian church and I had my pastor tell me that I needed to go on a spiritual search and find another path because the answers I was looking for was not in the Christian faith. So I was like, oh, Christian words, no. So for a long time, I put that book on the shelf, probably 8 years. It sat on my shelf until I really was in on your knees. Everybody gets situations in their life that take them to their knees. Please, God, help me. I cannot get out of this myself. I'm in so much pain. I felt unfairly treated by a relationship I had been in. And so I heard a voice, an interior voice that said, look up. I looked up and it said, take down the book. I knew exactly what it was saying. I took down the Course in Miracles and I said, please, God, help me. And I opened the book to a passage that read, you cannot be unfairly treated. And I was like, oh my God, this is like an answer to the exact question on my heart and soul. And so I read the next few paragraphs, which I totally did not understand at the time. But I just had this feeling, this inner resonance that said to me, Diane, this is the truth. Pay attention. And so I just from then felt that I needed to find a study group and start studying. And so that started 30 years of working with the text, doing study groups in my home, going to other people's study groups. And really, for a very long time, I didn't think it was like, oh, wow, this is my path. I was just fascinated with the text because, one, it was difficult. So I needed a lot of conversation. That's why I had the study groups. And two, whenever I applied it, it worked. Mm-hmm. And that convinced me. So in 2018, just one of those miraculous events came. I didn't even go searching for it, where there was the opportunity. I live in Canada, the Canadian International Metaphysical Ministries came to a good friend and said, we've approved A Course in Miracles as a program, as a spiritual program, and that, you can be ordained in it, and would you teach it? And we were having coffee that day, and she said, and you're going to be the first one.
Setting precedents. Let me ask you a question. Prior to finding the course, you weren't teaching or counseling, were you? You were doing your marketing work, right? Because you have an extensive background in marketing, as I mentioned in my intro. And but you weren't working with people in a capacity like you are today, certainly. So were you doing primarily the marketing before that, before the minister's message?
Yeah, I was primarily doing the marketing. I certainly wouldn't have called myself a spiritual teacher. I would have called myself a spiritual student.
Right.
And somebody
A
who,
spiritual student, though.
yeah, we're all spiritual students and teachers. We're all teachers, and we're all students all the time. And the course is very clear about that, actually, in the manual for teachers. That yeah. So no, I was doing mostly Creative Wonders communication. I've had that company incorporated for 31 years, and I'm a writer producer. So I love that part. But eventually, I always knew Creative Wonders here, Course in Miracles here, it needed to do this, and I needed to the spiritual work to be the focus. And it's just recently that I've learned that I can combine the two, that creativity and spirituality are really the same thing. We are creators.
We
We
are
are a spark of the creator.
And the thing that really inspires me most about you and the work that I'm doing is that we're in the same conversation, that we're divine beings, that we're gods creating a reality. And when I speak, I just say, you know what? I'm going to say something that maybe sounds blasphemous to you, but we're God in the body. We're God in form, and we're creating our realities just like the spirit, just like our creator created us. So I find it comforting to have a colleague like you in the same conversation. And so share a little bit about your knowing or your beliefs about being divine.
Well, I believe just at the very foundation that we are sparks of the Creator. We are an extension of God. God created us. We didn't create ourselves. God created us through extending love. And we are that extension of love. And we have the same characteristics. So in the Bible, it says we were created in the likeness or image of God. And to me, that means it's not like God was a body sitting up on a cloud. God is a frequency. God is love. And God's love goes out and extends into the universe. And that draws things into form or manifestation. And so we are, as you say, creator gods. And that's why I say creativity and spirituality are married, because we are creating our lives. That's our biggest project. We are here to create lives where we are, just as your show says, Patricia, aligned with the divine.
Aligned with the divine. And, I think it's challenging for people, even in the spiritual conversation, to find that alignment. And in my opinion, and I like yours as well, is that our first of all, our programming in life is so strong with belief systems, imprints from the past that just simply are not true. They're lies about us, but we've been so plugged into it that even when we come across a body of work like the Course in Miracles, or in my situation, the word work, we're intrigued by it and we're fascinated by it, but we still get hooked by these old patterns that pull us back into maybe having an interesting conversation about being divine, but we never really move to knowing it. Now, share with me a little bit about how you look at that.
Well, the very first thing that I like to address in my creator course and some of the different things I teach is that we can be conscious creators or unconscious creators. So what happens is when you grow up in a culture, in a family, in a particular religion, you grow up in a soup of beliefs and values that you just absorb. You don't even really know you're absorbing them. You're just taking them in.
That's what you know. It's like a fish swimming in the water. We're in the soup of our cultural background.
Exactly. You're swimming in that soup and you absorb some of the flavors of that soup and you reject others. And the thing is, that stuff goes, a lot of it goes unconscious. And so when I hear words like, I don't know why this keeps showing up in my life, or why do I seem to be in this same story over and over again? How come I can't get out? Or why am I always in, financial trouble, or my relationships are in trouble, or my family is always um, in trauma? That says you've gone unconscious. You don't know what's pulling form to you. You don't know what those thoughts are. And so I like to tell people that we want to be conscious creators, so we need to understand how we create. How do we create like God? We create through our mind and our thoughts and through our emotions. And so the two of them work. Thoughts electrical, the emotions magnetic, and it goes out into an electromagnetic field and pulls back form. So you need to be careful with your thinking. The Course says that, there is no word that's not important, basically. Everything manifests.
Right. And it's interesting that you talk about that soup. It's a great metaphor. It's a great metaphor because we grow up in that soup. And the thing about creating is that everyone is a divine being having a human experience. Everyone is creating their reality all the time. We're creating it with our thoughts and our feelings. And when you add the word to it, it's another vibration that expedites or exponentializes the happening. And what I love is that, as you say, creativity and divinity, spirituality are the same thing. My shtick was a television show that I did many, many years ago, and for a long time, was that spirituality and science are the same conversation. And it really is true, because you talk about going out into the field with our thoughts and our emotions, and then I add the word to that, and of course we speak it into creation. Deepak Chopra says that subatomic particles are the stuff of creation. That when the thoughts and feelings, and then moved by the word, although you don't need the word to create, because we create without actually speaking it. But when we do that, we're impacting the subatomic particles in the field and causing those particles to drop into matter, causing the subatomic particles to drop into matter. And I think that it certainly has been a very important part of my understanding, because I have a strong left logical brain that likes to know, well, yeah, but how? How are we actually doing that? And it wasn't until I studied, the difference between the quantum atom and the Newtonian atom that I really understood, that quantum physics is really the wind under the wings of people understanding spirituality.
It really is. And interestingly enough, after my Lutheran pastor had said to me, you got to find another way, I went looking for many spiritual paths, and one of them was quantum physics. I read back in the 70s, Frudra Capra's The Tao of Physics.
Yeah, I did too. That was one of the first books
I read. One of the first books I ever read. And I was like, there it is. Science and spirituality just running together in parallel lines. I mean, it is saying the same thing that sages have been saying for decades. And so I needed to find something that really truly resonated with me. So although I am a spiritual minister now for maybe 40 years, I said, I would have been a spiritual minister if I could have found something I agreed with.
It's interesting that you use the word spiritual and minister together, because when people hear the word minister, what do they think of? They think of religion, they think of maybe spirituality. But a spiritual minister is not like a minister in a traditional church, because it's really about spirituality. Yeah.
It really is about spirituality. And the difference between religion and spirituality for me is religion already has the rules all written down. It has the story formulated. You get the story. You get the rule book. And now you've got to be a good whatever, Christian, Buddhist, Sikh, whatever, by following what you've been given. Spirituality is on the exact opposite end, and it's saying, I need you to look inside yourself to discover your own spirit and to discover what is true for you. And from that, you create your life and your spiritual life. And so it's very much involves you, spirit, because nobody's going to do it the same way. Everybody's going to do it a slightly different way. And that's why I love that there's two texts, you using the I am the word and myself using A Course in Miracles, that really says exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but they're speaking into the listening of different crowds of people.
Exactly.
Although I'm just going to reveal now that you and I are going to be doing a TV show called
Yes.
Miracles and the Word, and we will be looking at all these life issues. But you'll be bringing your information forth through the perception of the Course in Miracles, and I will be doing it through the word work. I call it the word work. The first book is the seminal text, and then there are now 10 more books. There'll be 12 books totally. That's going to be the final amount of books that'll be coming forth. But
Yeah, wonderful.
it's very exciting. So, what would you say are the major teachings of the Course in Miracles? Could you give us the cliff notes on the major teaching? Because I know I know I studied it myself for 8 years, so I know that it's comprehensive.
It is comprehensive, but the Course in Miracles really states the same thing over and over again in, 40 different ways. And really what it is there's love, which comes from the eternal, from God, and then there's fear, which comes from the separated ego self. And those two things fight. They're, like they are constantly coming from different positions. And the Course says the ego's the strongest voice. It speaks loudest and it speaks first. And the spirit voice, or the voice for love, is softer. And often you have to get still to hear it. But the Course basically says, choose. You can't be in two thought systems at the same time. There's the thought system of fear and there's the thought system of love. And you must choose. Are you going to come from fear or are you going to come from love? And it's really about removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence within us. That's really what it's about.
I would just disagree with you a bit regarding love and fear fighting, because I think that you're absolutely correct about that love, that tuning into the essence of who we are. That's quiet. And I don't think that aspect of us fights at all. That aspect of us is in total love all the time. Fear, however, is strong because people give their power away to their ego mind personality because that's how they relate to the material world. So, and then of course the ego is in its glory because it's running the show and controlling the scene. So it takes a lot for a person, and I think you and I are a perfect example of that, to really make that leap to the knowing. That's so important. And I think our work as spiritual mentors, teachers, guides, call us what you will, is really cut out for us. Because even though, I mean, I have many clients who are spiritually conscious enough to come to me, right? But at the same time, they're so locked into these belief systems from the past that are in their subconscious, pretty much running their show and sabotaging their happiness.
That's very true. Yeah, and that's why we have to bring it to consciousness, because these programs are unconscious a lot of the time. It's like the big iceberg, 5% on top and 95% under submerged. And so the way to do that is to watch the emotions. The emotions are the guideposts, and try to get out of judgment with them. It's not negative and positive. Both are serving you to give you information about yourself so these issues can surface and we can clear them. Because the Course says love is beyond what can be taught. We're not here to teach you love. We're here to remove the blocks so you can feel love's presence within you, because it is within you. You may not acknowledge it. You may deny it. The Course says you may outright disagree with it, but it doesn't matter. You were not responsible for creating you. something higher than you created you, and it created you from love. And so the love is there. We
And
just have
love
to
is
find
there.
it.
And then, of course, we've heard all these acronyms: fear, false evidence appearing real, and feel the fear and do it anyway. And I think we're in a schoolhouse of mastering fear. I really do think that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, each of us is going to do that in a different way, because each of us is a unique expression of the divine, even though we may not acknowledge our divinity. But each of us there's nobody like anybody on the planet. I don't care how many identical twins or triplets or quadruplets there are that are the same. They're not.
No.
Because each of us has our own unique soul that goes on, that has never been born and will never die. And we're just going to continue to go on past these experiences.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's no two that are, quote, exactly the same. We all do it in very unique ways. That's why we're creators. We're each creating a very unique life. I say to people, if you think you're not creative, because lots of people say to me, oh, I'm not creative. I say, okay, well, your biggest creative project is your life. I want you to look around and find one other person on the planet that has your exact life. There is no one. You can't find it, right? And that's billion people.
And that's why competition and comparison are really moot points, if I might use that term, because if each of us would come into alignment with our uniqueness as an expression of the divine in a physical body, then we're flying. We're doing what we came here to do, to be fully self-expressed, or to be fully expressed in our divinity as the unique being that we are. But there's so much competitive and competition. I'd really like to get your hit right now on what you think is going on right now on the planet. I mean, we know generally people are raising their eyebrows and shaking their heads about everything that's happening. But where do you see us in our evolutionary process right now, Diane?
Well, I think that although we're unique, where it goes wrong, it's like everything, everything in moderation, right? Where it goes wrong is we start to think we're very special. I'm more special than you. And so therefore, I know it says I shouldn't park in the handicap parking spot, but I'm in such a rush and I'm so special, I'm going to pull in there and do it anyways. And it's the specialness that keeps us separated from our brothers and sisters. And so it is this that we need to heal. We need to heal thinking that anyone is more special than anyone else.
Exactly.
We are all unique, but we're not so special that we can. I mean, I see this sometimes on the road. There's somebody, they've just parked their car right in the middle of the road to run into a store. It's like right in the middle of the road. They've just stopped. And I'm like, I say to my husband, there's a special person, honey. Very, very special. They believe they can, just ignore everyone else and do whatever they want, and everybody else can just go around them because they're so special. So I think it is this belief in trying to be special. I'm not talking about our uniqueness. I'm trying to draw a really thin line here between you are unique, but to move it to the place where I'm more special than you, and therefore, I'm going to go to war with you and get rid of you and your beliefs because my beliefs trump yours. This is where we get into trouble.
One of the things about this work, and I would say it's the same with you because I know you a little bit, at least after these couple of months, is that it's really not about it's not at all about being special. It's about the shifting the perception so that that everyone is divine, everyone is God in form. Exactly. And even the so-called bad guys, I'm going to use Putin as an example here, but Putin and Hitler. And that's been a big leap for me in my own spiritual path, to think of attacking and judging the bad guys in the world. First of all, it drops our vibration, right? It drops our vibration. And then, of course, we're contributing to whatever negativity they're putting out there in their negative actions and their negative thoughts. So we contribute to that instead of, wait a minute, if I acknowledge them as divine, if I acknowledge them as God in the body, having a human experience as this Hitler guy, or Putin, then I'm bypassing all that ego stuff, all the negativity that's there, because I'm not giving it any power. I'm not dropping down and saying, oh yeah, that. What I'm doing is saying, I acknowledge you, Hitler, as God in form. And in this lifetime, you're making these choices, but I see your God self, and that's where I choose to hold you. That's a whole different conversation. That's been a big leap for me since I've been doing my word work. I say word work over all the books that I've been studying over the past 9 years. What are your thoughts?
That's absolutely true. So the Course would call it level confusion, that we confuse the physical level with the spiritual level. And the spiritual level is eternal. It's always love. It's timeless. And so these qualities, so you're seeing the divine, the spiritual in these people. And you're leaving the physical, which is all their behavioral stuff down here. You don't have to agree with what they're doing behaviorally, because everyone, unfortunately, has free will, and we can all make our own choices. And that we live in a free will zone, so people can choose. And what I might think is positive, another person might think is negative. I often use the example of hair. You know, in this country, I can wear my hair however I want, but there are other places in the world where if I showed my hair, I might be put to death. And so right and wrong is based in culture, it's based in beliefs, it can be based in religion. And so we look past that level, that physical level, to the divine within, and we acknowledge that level.
Yeah.
And the rest, you know, each person is going to deal with that differently.
Yeah, like in the word work, the guides say, see them as divine.
Yes.
When you do that, you raise their vibration. You don't have to sit down and have dinner with them or have coffee with them. You don't have to have anything.
You don't have to. Don't have to marry them, or
well, you don't
go
even,
on vacation with them.
but you don't even have to have coffee with. You don't even have to acknowledge them. You don't even have to say hello to them if you were to bump into them in the street. You're acknowledging them as divine. And the beautiful thing about that, I find in my own experience, is that I find that it's really impacted my judgment. You know, I judged Putin, and with Trump, I was addicted to politics there for the whole time during that Trump fiasco and all of that, Hillary and all of that. And I would just sit there in my judgment and be pointing the fingers. But you know what? We can't, if we're really about evolution and ascension, which is what the guides talk about, and I know the Course talks about it too, then we have to really master judgment. And I think probably the biggest mastery of judgment is mastering our own self-judgment.
100%. The Course says what the I am the word material says, and what the Course says exactly the same. The Course says, as you see your brother, so you see yourself. You can't go out and judge another without having judgment within you. So it's actually a great release to not judge our brothers and sisters. It's a wonderful release. It's like, because it is all this comparison and judgment that actually causes us pain and causes us suffering. Exactly. And so if we want to live a life full of more joy and ease, then the ending of judging each other and comparing, well, myself with my neighbor and myself with this movie star, whoever you want to compare with, gets us into a lot of trouble and a lot of unhappiness.
It does. It gets us into trouble. And of course, all judgment, excuse my kitty here, she's bumping my computer. And all judgment comes from fear. Every negative thought comes from fear. And when you think about that, let's talk about something that I took away from the Course in Miracles. It's 2 words: choose again. I can remember that.
Choose again.
Choose again. 2 little words, but they're so important. Talk to us about that.
Well, the Course says, if you find yourself in any kind of emotion or frequency, however you want to say it, that feels uncomfortable, whether it's I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm depressed, whatever it is, it says choose again. Because where you are is not at peace. It's not in joy. It's not in flow. And so if we acknowledge that we are creator beings, and it is our thought and our mindset that is going out into the quantum possibility and pulling back reality, it's saying choose another thought, choose to think differently. And so, we're always, with course material, we're always reframing things for people.
Yeah.
So, if you hate your job, if you're going around saying, I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my job, you're going to get more hating of your job. That's what the world is going to deliver you. But if you try and see, my job is giving me the income that I need right now so that I can be peaceful enough to look for another job, then you can be grateful for what you have and looking forward to more. And so it's that constant choose again. If this set of thoughts is not working for you, choose again. Of course, says that over and over and over again.
And what I've realized in my path, and I have my degree in counseling psychology, but I call myself a mentor because I really share and teach my own experiences on what's worked for me. And what I've been able to do, and I've shared this so many times on other podcasts and with everyone in my speaking, is that be present to when you're having that negative thought or that barrage of negative thoughts about someone or something. And because of all the years of the past where you got drugged down into that rabbit hole, that you're going to get drugged down into that rabbit hole again unless you choose again, unless you observe what's going on and say, no, I am not going to go there. I am going to appreciate this job because it's giving me the support I need right now and the peace to be able to find another job down the road or whatever. It was a great example. And that's been a big one for me. And it has taught me compassion for people who consider themselves spiritually conscious, because they get hooked a lot. They're spiritually conscious maybe while they're meditating or reading a passage from the Course or from the Word Work or from another conscious book. But it's so easy for us. The ego really knows how to get in there and push those buttons for us to react. So that for me, it's been being able to stop and react. Even today, as I shared, when I got on with you, yeah, you said, how you doing? I said, I'm here.
I'm here, yay.
Yay. And that was an opportunity for me to realize, in thinking about that I needed to make another choice. I needed to make another choice and move forward. And
because we can get caught very easily and get
probably one of the biggest lessons for me, because what happens is people get triggered and then they go down the rabbit hole of thinking they're a victim of life instead of being a creator of their life. And then then the more they get triggered and go down there, that they get just lost in that cesspool of negativity. I mean, not everybody, but I would say people that consider themselves miserable and want to leave the planet and all of that are, just in that cesspool of negativity, which is grounded in fear.
Yeah, it is. And it kind of goes round and round like an old vinyl record, right? It's stuck in a groove and it just keeps going and it keeps creating the same thing. And so it was like we started this conversation when people say, I don't know why this keeps happening to me. Yeah, because you're going around and around in the same groove. And you got to make a choice to stop that groove. And one way to make that choice is to turn to the I Am the Word or turn to A Course in Miracles. What I love about us talking about this in
Let's talk about it.
is that it really is a universal curriculum.
It is.
We're really here to find ourselves as spirit, as God in the body, as you say, and to see everyone else as that, and to extend the love that is out into the world. This is how the world is going to heal. The world is going to heal through collaboration and connectivity and choosing again. Not to just go round and round complaining and this isn't right and this isn't good, and because there is a lot of good in the world and there's a lot of amazing people in the world. Unfortunately, a lot of the bad people get all the press, and you turn the daily news on and you hear this fear report. I call it the daily fear report. All the things you need to be frightened of. you know,
Yes,
and
I stopped cable because I just couldn't handle it anymore. And then between that and the commercials, especially for us baby boomers, of all the things that we need to be doing and beyond these drugs and that, it's like, what am I doing this for?
you know, it's drug commercial after drug commercial, you know, and then insurance. You need to insure your life. And, you know, I mean, it just goes on and on and on, all based in fear. And
Yep.
if you aren't aware of that, it's just that fear soup that you're living in. And then you are in reaction and defense and in attack rather than in safety, in peace and gratitude.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. I mean, that's why I love having these conversations, because in the hecticness of my life, I can have this as an oasis, as a respite, as a place where I can be in the sanctuary of a conversation that just lights me up from the inside out, and I know that. And I think for my work now, it's about really being able to bring that knowing into my life 100%,
Mhm.
100%, not just at times, but especially when I get triggered. And everybody gets triggered. We get triggered. It's
Everyone gets triggered.
part of the human experience. And it's not. A very dear friend of mine, probably one of my dearest friends, who's now in Chicago, Phoenix, I'm giving you a shout out. She said to me, 30 years ago, Patricia, it's not what happens in life, it's how you deal with it. It's what you do with it. And that is so true, because it speaks right to making another decision in the moment, that you're not going to go down that negative rabbit hole, or you're not going to be swimming in that soup anymore. It's a big decision for people
It
to
is a big
make that
decision.
leap, because they're so conditioned to reaction.
Mhm.
And
They
you,
are. They're conditioned to reaction and they're conditioned that sometimes that love is weak and that it's strong to be angry and aggressive and push your agenda forward and you know to be humble, to sit back, to be at ease, to be in gratitude is seeming as weak, which is exactly the opposite, right, of what it truly is. I mean,
I
it's why I call my books Turn Your World Upside Down to Get Your Life Right Side Up, because most of what is culturally approved of is kind of upside down. You know, if you are going to be in peace and safety, do you want to build a wall or do you want to take the wall down
right.
and join with your brother? You know, you
Yeah.
can either separate from your brother and feel fearful of them and need to be defended against them, or you can bring down the wall, find the places where you are divinely connected and appreciate each other.
Well, you're divinely connected. I would say find the place where you can either choose not to have anything to do with that person, or to sit down or have them become a close friend. Because the through line, as I'm becoming so clear about it now, is that everyone is God. There's nobody that is not expressing their divinity right now. And when you look at the negative people in the world, they're just totally asleep. They're just completely asleep. And yes, there are a lot of programs like this that are inspiring people to wake up, like we're doing, a lot of them. But when you look at what's going on from the standpoint of the politics and the corporate world and all of that and the money, you have at the top of the pyramid, you've got the 1% or the 10%. And they're
Mm-hmm.
the guys on the planet with all the money in the world. They have all the money, physical money that you could have. And along that goes with that power and all the rest of it. But how many of them are really spiritually conscious? There are some, and they're more and more coming to the fore. But I think that we are heralding the age of conscious billionaires, more and more conscious billionaires coming out, because as the billionaires take their place, they're going to be waking humanity up. So I want to just complete my point with saying that you have that tiny uh, capstone, if you will, of power with the money. And then you also have a tiny capstone with us as well, of spirit, of people that are in this conversation. I mean, I'll ask you a question. Relatively speaking, how many people do you think are in the conversation that we are in right now relative to humanity? Relative to 8 billion people, what would you say?
I'm not very good with math. So, if there's 8 billion people on the planet, I don't know, 1%?
Of that would be 8 million, right?
Would that be 8 million?
It would be 8 million. I don't think there's 8 million people that are
No,
in this
I think
conversation.
it's less than 1%.
Well, I'll tell you what Maharishi Mahesh Yogi said years ago, and he was the one that was the founder of Transcendental Meditation. He said before he passed that it will take 1/10 of 1%
Oh,
of the entire population to hit that 100th monkey number, the number of critical mass. Rupert Sheldrake would say the number of critical mass where boom, everybody wakes up and the monkeys are all washing their potatoes by the water edge. I mean, that's the story. Well, you know how much that is? 1/10 of 1% of 80 billion. Of 8 billion people. It's 80 million people. That's nothing. Think about it. 80 million people is, I mean, how many millions of people do you have in Canada? And how many millions of people are there in the United States and all over the world? Well, 8 billion, 80 million. That's that's where we are. We're the point birds going through the forest first with the machetes. And
yeah.
that's why it's important that we do collaborations like you and I are doing, because the Course and the word work are pretty much saying the same thing.
They are saying the same thing.
They're
And
saying the same thing, not pretty much.
I wanted to just say for the people that are listening that the Course says that, we're asleep. What are we asleep to? Because I think people get confused around this. When they say in the Word and they say in the Course in Miracles that people are asleep, they mean you're asleep to your divinity. You're asleep to your divinity. Because, the Course says that you, when you sleep, you that's not where you get your rest. When you wake is when you get your rest. And what it means is awaken to your divinity, because you can rest in that. So I like what you're saying. I just think that it's a place where people can get confused, because they say, what do you mean asleep? How am I asleep? I look awake.
Yeah. Yeah.
I look awake. Why am I asleep? But they're asleep to their divinity. They're asleep to who they truly are, their essence. And I just pulled a card because I love to pull a card and it just says, if you attack who God would heal and hate the one he loves, then you and your creator have a different will.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful? I mean, really, if you attack who God would heal and hate the one he loves, then you and your creator have a different will. We need to extend love on the planet.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how that's expressed by the Course, because there's no judgment in it. It's just stating the fact that you and your creator have a different world. Well, listen, let's talk about your books and let's talk about your cards and all these wonderful goodies that you have for the spiritual community at large. Diane, as I mentioned in the intro, is the author of 2 wonderful books about how applying the Course in Miracles can really be life-changing. So share with us about the books and
sure.
the cards.
Thank you. Yes, I have 2 books. Turn Your World Upside Down to Get Your Life Right Side Up, Book 1, which talks about life's big questions, relationships, work, and money. And then book has the same title, Turn Your World Upside Down to Get Your Life Right Side Out, Book 2. And that one deals with health, happiness, and fear and conflict. And so in each of the chapters, I give 5 stories from my life about the lessons I learned in each of these areas, because the Course is the theoretical material. It tells you, here's the philosophy, but it doesn't actually say, and this is how it works in real life. And so I wanted to give people stories of how, for myself, I used the text, I used the material to change my own life, to go from places of unhappiness and fear and struggle. So they're really stories about unhappiness, fear, and struggle, and how I shifted that for myself and what I did and how I became a believer. Because at first I wasn't a believer.
Well, you know what you did, and I do it too. That's what I call the mentoring. You spoke from your own experience. I mean, experience is the greatest teacher. I mean, just rattling off stuff that we've read in books that when we teach, no, it's stories. And you know, in the whole speaking realm, you and I are in the public speaking realm now, with all the summits we're on, all the events we're doing. Um, it's I forgot my train of thought. It's storytelling. Storytelling comes right to the top. Storytelling and humor.
Mm-hmm.
Storytelling and humor are really the keys to capturing people's attention. So
Yeah.
you're really wonderful in that. And I love your cards. So you took sayings from the Course in Miracles and you developed these beautiful cards with the mandalas on them. Show us the cards a little bit.
Well, here's some of the cards. I don't know. They're in 8 different colors. And the reason I created the cards was at the end of every one of my study groups, we would pass this little old ratty tat box around that had these quotes from the Course in Miracles.
Yeah, the box and my box looked pretty ratty too.
But it was ratty, right? And I thought, geez, I work in graphic design and writing, producing. I should be able to produce something much more beautiful than that. And so I just decided, I had heard the my own inner voice say, go upstairs, sit down, open the book and start typing, which I didn't know what that was about, but I just started to do it. And I started to collect this long list of quotes, which I didn't know what I was going to do with them. But they eventually turned into my books and also 8 decks of cards. And so I take the quotes right from the book and I just put them on the cards and they just look a lot more beautiful than
You have 8 decks, darling.
8. Yes.
And wow, why 8?
I don't know. I just collected that many quotes and I probably have more. And they're in different colors. So there's like the orchid deck, there's the tangerine deck, there's the teal deck. They're all different colors, but every deck has a different quote. So you can never get the same quotes.
So do you take cards from each deck to get all the different cards together like you show us here? So I would assume that one deck, if it was purple, then all the cards would be bordered in purple, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
oh,
So there's a teal deck, there's a violet deck, there's a marigold deck. And I asked my inner guidance, should I put them into like, you know, this deck's about love and this deck's about forgiveness and this deck's about, you know, maybe finances or love. And it said no. The beauty is in the synchronicity when people have no idea what they're pulling and they pull something that and I watch this happen all the time. I just pulled that card when we were talking, and the synchronicity, it's like the universe is, it's like we're having a conversation with the universe. It's like it's, yes, this is what I have to say. And people are really blown away by that. It
yeah.
helps them understand that one of the ways the universe works is with synchronicity and showing things.
Einstein says that. Excuse me for interrupting you.
Yeah, no problem.
Einstein says synchronicity is our natural state. Synchronicity is our natural state because when we're going with the flow, and for me, going with the flow, I always was fascinated by that because that comment's been around for a long time. Now I understand more about what it means to go with the flow, because for me, it's been about when I'm aligned with my divinity, I go with the flow. I don't even have to know where it's going. In fact, it's more exciting not to know where it's going because otherwise my ego mind personality tries to figure it out instead of simply going with the flow and embracing the unknown. How does the Course talk about embracing the unknown?
Well, I always say to students that, well, they say, well, you know, I don't know. I just don't know what I want to do. And I always say to them, that's a really good place to be. Because when you embrace the unknown and you embrace that you do not know, something bigger than you does know, and you open the door to that possibility. When you think you do know and you try and fix things to line up with your belief systems or your desires and wants, often it's not what's right for the whole. And the higher divine force is working with the whole. It's
Yeah.
not working with just you. It's
Yes.
working with everyone as one unit. And so it wants the best for everyone. It doesn't want just the best for Patricia or just the best for Diane.
Yeah.
So it sees parts that we don't see. And I think that's so powerful. I often say to people, nobody called me this year to see whether or not the daffodils should bloom. They just bloom.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's us, you know.
Yeah.
um, my train of thought just got interrupted. Hold on. No, go ahead and talk, darling. I wanted to bring something up. Are you enjoying this conversation?
Oh, of course. Love this
Isn't
conversation.
it fun? I mean, this is what we get to do.
I know. I know. It's great fun. That's why I just love it because we're talking about stuff that really is at our heart's center.
Yeah.
It really is what what lights me up.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you the story, people that are listening and viewing. So, yesterday I got a call from my guest who was supposed to be on the podcast today, and she just could not make it. She had to cancel, and we needed to reschedule. So I'm thinking, gosh, I like to do a podcast a week. And I'm thinking, what do I have tomorrow? Oh, I have my time with Diane. We're going to be doing the recording on the TV show. And then I thought, Diane, she's on my list. And you know what? My day's been so crazy that I printed out what you sent me, your bio and stuff, and it's sitting here. I haven't even read through all of it yet. But yet, my point is this: you and I can sit and have this conversation without any preparation at all, because it just, you know, it's kind of like going with the flow
It
of
is going with the flow.
what we know.
Going with the flow of what we know. And one of my students said to me one time, "You keep saying that, go with the flow, go with the flow. I have no idea what you mean by go with the flow." And I said, "Well, have you ever gone onto the dance floor and stepped all over someone's feet?" And she said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, that's not going with the flow." But have you ever gone to dance with somebody and you just flow? It just, you don't really know where you're going, but you can just naturally flow. So that's the feeling in your body. It's that feeling of just going with the energy. And so dancing's a good way for people, if they don't know what being in the flow means,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, try dancing with somebody and you can feel when you're in the flow and you can feel when you're not in the flow.
And I love to dance, and I know I've been many times in the flow, and it's been fabulous. But I think where I've tripped myself up, and it's a great metaphor for my life, is that I try to control it instead of just surrendering to it,
Mhm.
and just surrendering to the energy and the vibration that's there. My vibration was different and trying to control it. And I look at how I've tried to control my life. And now I'm at a point where, I mean, I, I embrace the unknown because I think it's far more exciting than the known.
It is far more exciting. And you have to, the course says, at some point you have to put down the book. This is a course that's really based in experience. These are all just words. If you don't put these words into practice,
Exactly.
because a lot of the concepts are bigger and challenging
Yeah.
and difficult. And so it'll just be words to you. But when you put it into action, whether you believe it or not, the course says you don't need to believe it. You don't need to embrace it. You just need to have a little willingness to try it.
All you need is a little willingness. That's another line from the course that always stuck with me. Yep.
You just need a little willingness to put it into action. And then the synchronicity and the flow that happens, or as the
Take
course
one.
would call it, the miracles that happen, convince you to keep going.
I thought of what, and it ties into what we're talking about now. I want to talk about what I wanted to mention earlier:
Mm-hmm.
vibration and frequency. This
Mm-hmm.
idea of energy, vibration, and frequency. I think it's such an important conversation for us to have. And I would just love to know your thoughts on it. And I know they're aligned with mine, but share where you're coming from with that.
With vibration and frequency. Yeah, so we are all vibrating. Every cell Everything in the world is got a vibratory rate. In fact, I've believed since I was a small girl that by the time I die, we'll have something called vibrational medicine, where we'll actually
Oh, yeah.
measure our vibrational rates rather than our heartbeats and things like that. And diseases will have vibrational rates and frequencies. Everything is a frequency on some level, and love is a frequency. Love is. Love is.
Yeah,
It's
love is, you know, people think love is an emotion. Say, you know, love is not an emotion. Love is just what is. Love is God.
it.
Love is a frequency. You're right.
Love is. It just is. That's why the course says it can't teach you about love because love just is. And
Right.
so, but it does need to help you understand how to remove the obstacles, remove all that cultural programming, all those beliefs, all those nasty things that somebody said to you, they're still hanging on to, so that bring down your self-worth, that make you feel like you have to defend yourself and you have to be more than this person or that person, because the course says when you remove all that stuff, the course is not a course about doing, it's a course about undoing what has been created in your life so that you can come back home to who you are, which is love.
Yeah. 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 In the word work, the guides talk about that our work in the world is not doing, it's being. And you're saying the same thing. When we can really be aligned with our essence of who we are as spirit in the body and know that it's backed by quantum physics and that we are manifesting our reality all the time. So let's make a good choice. When humanity can come to that place, it will happen. We'll get that 80 million people. I mean, 1/10 of 1% is 80 million people. Think about that. It's not a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have a lot more people than that in the United States, right?
Oh yeah, and when you think about it, that's a tiny percentage. But again, it's the conversation of knowing rather than believing. It's a knowing.
Yeah, you have to move from the thinking to the knowing, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. So listen, tell us as we're coming to the end of this podcast about this wonderful new program that you're about to launch early in the year. And it sounds wonderful, and I'm excited to be a part of it. Share.
Wow. Yes, I'll certainly share. So the live TV streaming program we call Miracles on the Word, and it is not my creation. It's really the download that Patricia received when we were on a summit together in the spring. She heard me speak, and she heard that we would do, I think at the time you heard it was going to be a podcast that we were going to do.
What I heard was, yes, you're going to do a podcast with this woman, and it's going to be called Miracles in the Word. Boom. And I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to tell you about it because I just knew.
Yeah, and I'd never heard of I Am the Word before, and by taking your course with you, Patricia, I just realized how aligned. I mean, I love the name aligned with the divine because I say it myself all the time. You have to get in alignment with the divine within yourself. I call listening for my divinity my dig, my divine inner guidance, and learning
Yeah.
my dig. I gotta consult my dig, my divine inner guidance on,
I'm going to write that down.
yeah, my divine inner guidance. So I'm gonna consult my dig as to what I'm gonna do here because everybody has divine inner guidance, but we mostly override it with the need for society's approval. And so if somebody wants us to go somewhere and we don't really want to go somewhere, we're tired, but we go because we're obligated or we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or we do things against what we know in our heart and in our being we really shouldn't be doing at this minute. And so
That's,
it's not that
that's
we do that.
self-love. That's self-love.
Yeah, I mean, but it takes a long time to learn self-love, I think, because society asks you to conform to a lot of their cultural norms and wanting to be good girls and boys, uh, we line up.
Collective agreement is really, really tough. Yeah, I'm very excited about our our collaboration, and
And
we
so we're going to show people how, like these things we've been talking about. Let's look at forgiveness. Let's look at judgment. Let's look at love. Let's look at fear. And we'll talk about them from the different viewpoints.
yeah,
What does the word say, the word work say, and what does Course in Miracles say? And I think what is really reaffirming is that they say the same thing.
they do. Well, they do say the same thing, and I think you and I have a very clear resonance, where we're vibrating at that frequency, and I think it makes the work that we do all the more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that we can and there's so many more people that are vibrating at our frequency, and that we're going to reach that 80 million people, maybe in the next 10 years. That would be wonderful.
It would be wonderful. And yeah, we just have to get it out there and keep talking about it. And we have no trouble talking about it.
Oh, we have a wonderful time talking about it. That's why our show is going to be so successful. I can just sense it now. But you know what? When I talked to you about your work, what I meant was you have this exciting program that
Oh,
operate.
not our TV program. You meant my Sacred Creative Arts program.
The TV program is going to be fabulous, people. So, definitely tune in, because I'm having a great time in this conversation with Diane. And I think we have, people are attracted to people for particular reasons. And there'll be people that'll hear what I have to say, and there'll be people that'll hear what you have to say. But I think our combined frequency is very powerful.
And I think it helps people to know that there's not just one thing saying it out in the world. Love is, and love is no matter what language you speak, what book you're reading, love is. I mean, there are some ultimate truths out there. And so I do think that it is validating, reassuring to, just calm the system down and go, yeah, good, I can rest here.
Yeah.
This feels good. This feels comfortable. I don't need to be striving all the time to prove myself, because that's kind of what the culture wants. It wants you striving, it wants you accumulating, it wants you, and look at where that got us.
Yeah.
It got us to a polluted world, not just polluted in the terms of we're mining deep into Mother Earth and we're taking out her riches and ores and we're dirtying her waters and we're filling her air up with smog and pollution. But it's also, we are polluting our world with our negative thoughts.
Ah, yeah, absolutely.
And that's what really needs to shift. We'll clean up our waters if we can clean up our thinking.
Yeah. And that reminds me, I did a TV show years ago with Dennis Kucinich. Do you remember him, Dennis Kucinich?
No, I don't.
President in 2000. He's an amazing fellow. He's a conscious politician.
Mm-hmm.
And he was laughed at for running.
Oh.
He was just an amazing fellow. Anyway, I interviewed him, and he said something that blew my mind. We were talking about politics. We were talking about, for some reason, the Iranian hostage crisis. I don't know why I would even ask that question. But he answered the question, then he said, but what we really have to pay attention to is being held hostage by our own negative thinking.
Yes, I agree. I agree. We are held hostage by our own negative thinking.
And I never ever forgot that. And that was 23 years ago when he was on the show.
Well, that's great. I mean, people say to me, what can I do about the war in Ukraine? And I say, well, you can obviously give money, but the really important thing, if you really want to do something, is look for where you are at war in your life. Because as long as we have a consciousness that accepts war, and we are at war with ourselves, we're at war with our families, we're at war with our relatives. How can war is showing up on the planet because we're at war inside. And so it gets projected outside. And so that's where we really need to do the
Wow,
work.
that's
Clean up.
that's brilliant. Thank you for that. And and I would say that we see them as God and lift them up. That's what we can do also. Go
Yes.
within, look at where we're at war, and also just lift up the situation, just lifting it up to a higher frequency.
Yeah, I love that too. That's really a wonderful thing. But I think people don't believe they're at war inside of themselves. But a lot of them are fighting every day. They're fighting their thoughts. They're fighting their belief systems. They're fighting their neighbors.
Yeah,
They're
they're
fighting
fighting.
over parking spots. I mean,
I know. I
we
know.
have to stop fighting.
It's just amazing how inherent it seems to be. Inherent, that's not the right word, but um inculcated, maybe that's a better word. The negativity. I'll give you a quick story. My housemate was coming home from work, and there was a guy on her tail where she couldn't even see his headlights. That's
Wow.
how close he was to her, and he was harassing her. She had to call the police. He was harassing her, and she got off the exit. He got off the exit. It was very scary. And
Mm.
this is out of the blue. You don't know this person at all. That's my point, is that we are, from the standpoint of collective agreement, we're swimming in this pool of warring within ourselves and being disconnected from love and therefore our divine selves. It's an epidemic. That's what I was looking for. It's epidemic what's going on in the world as far as the unconsciousness goes. And even unconsciousness within people who are, in the spiritual community globally.
And now, see, it's interesting because you said the negative thinking is epidemic, and then what shows up in the world? An epidemic, COVID, right? And we think we're not responsible for it, but we are responsible for it. And we need to acknowledge that we are creator beings that
Right.
are stronger and more magnificent than we can ever imagine. And we are creating what we're seeing right in front of our face. No one else is doing it. It's not the gremlins or the fairies or the bad gnomes or the ugly dwarfs that live under the bridge. We are creating it. We need to take responsibility. Stop pointing and blaming.
That's a huge word, responsibility. And Bruce Lipton says that when he's lecturing, he brought the biology of belief. When he's lecturing and he's talking to people about how we're creating our reality with our beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, and they were all on the edge of their seat. And then he says, and once we realize that we are fully responsible for creating our reality, we are fully responsible for creating our reality. He says, and he could see them visually just kind of going back into their seat, because it means being responsible for every single thing that happens to us. Nothing happens to us by accident. We aren't
Nothing happens
auto
by
accidents and victims of this, that, and the other situation. On some level, some vibrational frequency, we created it and attracted it in our lives. That's why helping people understand that frequency is the language of the universe, not English. It is really frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I want you to, before we wrap up, I want you to tell everyone about your program, your year-long mastermind.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Well, I've always wanted in the last little while to go from me being responsible. I've run my own company for 31 years, incorporated, and it was always me at the helm. I didn't have a partner in the business. And so I got tired of being me. I want we. I want to go from me to we, because I really believe it's also my spiritual calling to acknowledge it isn't me, it's we. And as long as I stay focused on the me and I'm not including the we, I'm not getting the full experience. And we are meant to work together. So I've created this program, Sacred Creative Arts, and there's 11 teachers beside myself. And basically, the foundation is really what we've been talking about, that you are the creator of your life. There is no one else creating your life but you. And when you get conscious of that, most people don't want to get conscious for exactly what you were talking about, Patricia. it means you ultimately have to be responsible. You can't say that this, whatever's going on in your life, is someone else's fault, your mother's fault, the government's fault, your boss's fault. No, you have to take responsibility, but that's also empowerment. When you can take responsibility for what you're creating in the world. So the course is called Sacred Creative Arts, 5 Steps to Awakening. So we talked about awakening earlier. It's awakening to who you truly are. And Deepak Chopra said, with the rise of AI, there's 3 things that AI can't do. 1 is be creative, use your imagination. 2 is build an inner world or sentience. So all of the clairs, clairaudience, clairvoyance, claircognizance, all of the inner knowing senses can't be done by computers. And computers can't go from physical to spiritual like human beings can. So he said, these are the 3 big areas that are coming up. And when I first started my company, Creative Wonders, over 30 years ago, I said the big things were going to be alternative health, the environment, social justice, and it's all come to pass. And I knew when that was over, it was in the mainstream, that was good. And then I was told, Diane, the next thing is conscious creation. People have to wake up that they are the creators of the world they see around them, and they have to take responsibility. So this course takes them through 5 steps to that awakening and how to create a more empowered life for yourself using your imagination, your inner senses, and moving from physical to spiritual. So the first step is about awareness of self. The second step is about how to create a language with the universe. How does the universe talk to you? It doesn't phone you up. It doesn't say, hey, Patricia, we see you're having a bad day. But the universe wants to be in communication with you, but it uses the inner senses, it uses signs, it uses nature. So that section is all about how does the universe communicate with you from the outside in. The next part is about accepting who you are in your human form and how you connect to your divinity. And so that's from the inside out. It's getting you to focus on your inner qualities, who you are as a person, what can you take responsibility for, what do you want to create in your life, understanding that not everybody's the same. So one of the features in that is like looking at your human design. Not everybody's to be the director. Some people are to be behind the scenes. Some people are meant to be in front of the scenes. If you're somebody that's meant to work behind the scenes and you're trying to work in front, you're going against the flow. So it's getting to know yourself a bit more. And then we want to really basically align with the divine and move into action is what we want to do. And so some of the techniques are about how do we remove those blocks and giving some of those techniques to do that various thing. And so in the end, it's 40 weeks. It's 5 steps, 8 weeks each. And it's going to get you 40 different techniques of how to get in alignment with your own inner divine self. So it's going to give you sort of like a spiritual toolbox.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Here's how you can use what we're teaching you to go within, because people don't know how to do it.
I love what you're up to. I think it's an incredible opportunity for people to round out their spiritual interests and understand their own, what's going on with them spiritually. Where are they spiritually? And just listening to you talk about it, it's I mean, I'm looking forward to experiencing it, because yeah. I know that there's a lot that I'm unaware of that I would like to be aware of,
Right. There's so many different things you can do. It's not just one thing. I'm not taking the Course in Miracles and saying, do this. No, you can take the Course in Miracles as part of that program on the side if you're interested, but you don't have to. I'm trying to give you tools so that you can build your own spirituality. People don't know how to do that. They know how to follow a church and rules and religion, but they
Yeah.
don't know. How do I get to my own spirit, Diane?
Yeah.
How do I find out what's within me? So, anyways, I'm really looking forward to Patricia. You'll be coming on and talking about what you're really focused on, which is
The word work, talking about the body of work that is channeled by non-physical beings coming through a fellow by the name of Paul Selig. I'll be talking about that body of work and how it really is the through line in my all of my work, and also the tarot. I read the tarot. The Voyager deck is what I work with and I teach, and that is what Diane talked about. Is, we have tools. Cards are just a tool. We have the answers within us, but we've got to ask the questions and then allow our intuition to guide us to the answers. And our intuition is synonymous with our God self, our divine self. So it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for people who have something important to share, like you and I do, coming together and sharing it with people who are really ready to take a deep dive into their spiritual lives.
I think so. You're ready to take a deep dive into your spiritual life. Often this doesn't happen to what I call the third act in people's lives because they're very, very busy being responsible adults. They're caring for the kids and, ferrying them to the soccer games, and they're, going to PTA meetings or whatever they're doing. They're very, very busy and they don't take a lot of time to look within because we're such a fast culture.
Yeah.
So often it doesn't happen for people until a bit later in life where they actually have the time and the space
Right.
to, and also they want answers to the bigger questions. Why are we here? What's it all about, Elfie?
Yeah. And it's interesting that when I observe the people that come to the summits that are about consciousness or awareness, that there are a lot of them are mostly women, although some men, but mostly women, and they're women in their third act, definitely.
They are women generally in their third act who really want to.
My third act, definitely. It's like, okay, what's next? I want to know I want to know what's next. What's beyond the known that I can just, follow that flow. And that's where we are. And in that way, it's very exciting. Listen, would you like to give a little gifty to any viewers or listeners today?
Sure. You want a book or a deck of cards or
whatever you'd like to give.
Sure. Why don't I send someone my first book, Turn Your World Upside Down to Get Your Life Right Side Up? I'm happy to do that.
Okay, good. So, and they can just reach you through this podcast or through your website, obviously.
Yeah, so the website, if you want to look it up, miraclesandwonders.ca. The Sacred Creative Arts program is part of that. It is a membership website, and one of the big things in the going from me to we that I want to do is build a spiritual community. We are better together. We are stronger together. It's the old analogy of one piece of string. You can pull on it and break it, but if you put 30 pieces of string and you twist them all together and you try and break it, it's a lot harder to break. And so I really do want to build this spiritual community. So go to miraclesandwonders.ca and see if what we're offering looks right for you. And if somebody wants to, how will somebody get this book? How will you pick the name?
Yeah, I think that that's a good question.
Yeah, because we don't know who's out there.
I think that if someone is interested in vying for that book, then they should reach out to you in your website. Hi, my name is Jessie, and I was watching the podcast with Patricia, and I'd love to get the book.
Well, let them, here's my email, diane@creativewonders.ca. They can also reach out to me there because I think it's a bit hard to reach out to me on the website unless you're a member.
Oh, yeah, I meant, okay, your email. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, the email I think is great. So yes, I'm happy to do that. During the summit, we gave away lots of decks of cards and books, and I was shocked that I was sending them to South Africa, New Zealand, Virginia, Panama. I mean, it was just like, wow.
Yeah, that's great.
We are getting out there. We are reaching the world. We are a community that is connected with love.
Yeah.
And we really want to support each other and make that not, love isn't a weakness, love is a strength. And
I,
we just
I,
have to.
I want to acknowledge you for everything that you're doing and say how happy I am that, we're collaborating and working together. This has been a very fun conversation for me.
Me too. Very fun. I could speak to you all day, Patricia.
And we haven't even met yet, have we?
I know we haven't met physically, but spiritually we certainly have.
We certainly have, which is very important. But we're going to get together in person someday and have a good time.
Yes, we will. We'll have a super good time. I just pulled a card again, and it says, "The secret of salvation is but this, that you are doing this unto yourself. No one else is responsible. You are doing this unto yourself." So the moment we learn to take responsibility, step up, realize that the world we see in front of us is the world we created. And the good news is you can create a different one.
All you have to do is make another choice.
You just have to choose again. And so maybe you choose to come and work with Patricia and I in the Sacred Creative Arts course that starts January 9th, 2024. You can look for it on the website. We would be honored to have some of these listeners come and work with us.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for being my guest today. I really enjoyed it. And today really epitomized how much I love my work. And I now invite all those that are in the conversation like we are to come because it's so much fun. And when we talk about this, we're building the energy. We're getting the frequency higher and higher.
We're getting it out there. The right people will come.
The right people will come. And thank you all for listening, whether you're driving your car or cooking or walking the dog or whatever you're doing. And for those that want to see the video, you can go to my website under media, and you'll be able to see all the podcasts there, or on YouTube, Align with the Divine with Patricia. So thank you, everyone. And I love you, Diane. I love you all.
I love you too, Patricia. Thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure.
You're so welcome. Bye.
Bye for now.
Thanks for joining me today on Align with the Divine podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you'd like to learn more about my work, I invite you to my website, alignwiththedivine.net. And on the homepage, I'm giving away a free gift. It's a masterclass I did called The 7 Keys to Successful Manifesting. Pretty much lays out the bones of my work. Also, for a limited time only, between now and the end of August, just for the summer, I'll be giving complimentary tarot sessions, 30-minute sessions valued at $90. So if you're interested, reach out to me using my email, patricia@patriciadiorio.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again for joining me today, and namaste.